Welcome to the Code with Jason meetup. I'm here again with mentee Josh Cutts. Josh, welcome.
Hello.
And for anybody who didn't see the first one, you want to give us a quick intro of yourself?
For sure. Yeah. I am in the midst of a career transition. So I'm attending an online uh, coding learning. So I'm trying to transition into web development. I previously have a background in molecular and STEM biology, and I worked in the med device field for a couple of years.
Okay. And you're located in either Washington or Oregon. Do I have that right?
Right, right, in Oregon.
Okay, got it. Okay. So yeah, last time we were working on a project of yours. It was kind of I don't know if you'd call it a coding puzzle, or
Yeah,
what. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and you said you worked on it for a
Cool.
bit since our last session and you got stuck, so let's take a look.
Yeah, let's see here. I'll share the screen. All right, so this is the problem. We can kind of go through it again if we need to take a look.
Okay.
Um, so for the code, last time we were working on this file, the range definition and then the range definition spec.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had so I had a good time kind of learning about RSpec and kind of figuring out how to do the tests first. And I think it was really helpful for me is shifting my mind to think about what I needed that output to be for the test before kind of writing the code.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I had a hard time. We were kind of talking about like the different terminology, like what kind of what to name different variables. And I
Mm-hmm.
got kind of stuck after we were talking about like the ranges and the range definitions, and I got kind of stuck in the terminology, and I wasn't really sure where to go. So
Okay.
I wanted to just leave that the way it was because I wasn't really there wasn't a clear path that I saw, and I kind of took a different path in this other file.
Okay.
Sorry, I talk with my hands a lot, and that happens.
Uh, oh, I hate when Zoom and all that stuff does that. Um, yeah, sorry, before we go deeper, for
Sure.
my benefit and for anybody watching,
Yeah.
can we just take a quick look at the problem
Hmm.
and give an overview? Okay, so it's like this agricultural scenario where we have seeds and soil and fertilizer, and they give us
Right.
these numbers which represent, what was it that they represent again?
Right. So they give us these integers at the beginning that are they call them seeds. And then they give these, I think there's seven maps. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven maps. So basically what you do is you start with a seed and then you use these numbers and to kind of transform the seed to soil to fertilizer, etc., all the way until it gets to a location. And then at the very end, what they want you to return is the minimum location. So kind of the minimum transformed integer. And then the way the transformation happens is you have this. I always get a little confused on what they actually call it. So do if we go down, okay, right. So they break it down for us here. So this is the seed to soil map from above.
Mhm.
So the first, you can kind of think of these as two separate, we are calling them like range definitions, I think. Um,
Yeah.
so you start with a destination range start, a source range start, and then a range length. So then this means that the source range starts at 98 and contains two values, 98 and 99. The destination range is the same length, but it starts at 50, and its two values are 50 and 51. This information, you know that it's seed. number 98 corresponds to soil number 50, and that seed number 99 corresponds to soil number 51.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
then,
it's all coming back to me now.
yeah, and then corresponding I mean, this one's kind of, there's only two, so it's quite short, but this one captures a lot more. So then the second line means that the source range starts at 50 and contains 48 values, 50 to 97. This corresponds to a destination range starting at 52 and also containing 48 values. So it goes up to 99. So seed number 53 corresponds to soil number 55. They essentially are just adding two here as long as it's in that range.
Okay. By the way, how did you find this advent of code thing?
Yeah, it's just something my peers were doing in the online course that I'm taking. So
Okay.
a bunch that we have like a big Slack channel. Some people were like, "We do Advent of Code. Try it out if you want." And I was still kind of early, so I was like, "I'll give it a whirl."
Okay. Yeah. So like from my perspective, you're like handling this just fine so far, but like it's this kind of exercise is like not something I would recommend for any beginner because it's like the actual coding part seems like not the greatest part of it. Like so much more of it is just figuring out this like abstract, convoluted problem. And then like if you can get the problem straight and figure out how to solve it, then the coding part is maybe not so difficult. But it's almost like more of an IQ test type thing rather than a programming challenge.
I found, yeah, I found that I agreed with the first half, but maybe just because of my skill level, the coding half was still pretty challenging for me.
Okay.
So I was like, may as well give it a try. But I actually, I mean, I was just trying to figure out something good to talk about for our first
Mhm.
couple meetings. If you have a different suggestion, I would love to kind of go a different direction. This was
No,
just
let's
one
continue with
problem
this.
for sure. Okay.
Yeah, just because like since we started, it seems good to follow through. Um, yeah, like a point I want to make is like programming is hard enough as it is. Like it's frustrating that sometimes people create these exercises where there's the programming challenges, but then there's also these really hard things, like these mentally challenging things that they throw in to make it even harder than it has to be. And it's just like, why? Um, yeah, so
One
that's my
reason
kind of rant about that.
a slight, I mean, I don't know if this is true because obviously I mean I'm really just getting started. What some of my peers in Slack were saying was they thought that some of this was built in such a way to kind of uh, deceive ChatGPT, because part of this is like a challenge, for like you get scores based on how quickly you solve each one, and there's a
Interesting.
scoreboard. So some people thought that like parts of it were designed in such a way to kind of deceive ChatGPT, so it wasn't just who could copy paste the fastest.
That's an interesting strategy. Keep making your problems just hard enough so that the current state of AI can't solve it.
Right, right.
Seems like a losing battle, but
Yeah,
maybe for now
yeah,
they're safe.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so can you take us back to the code and show us where
Hmm.
you're at right now?
So one thing I kind of linked onto that just because we're in here now is that they called it an almanac,
Hmm.
the map. So then
I
I
see.
was
Okay.
like, I thought that that might be a good place to hang some of our vocab.
Yeah.
So let's jump over here. Maybe is it better to look at the tests first, or
I think so.
yeah, okay. So I called the class Almanac, and then
Okay.
everything we're kind of doing to it, did with different methods.
Hmm.
So the first test was just getting the seeds from the input,
Okay.
um, and they give us right that sample input, and it's kind of a text file. So just making sure that we get an array of those integers.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next thing was to get the maps from the input. So then everything after the seeds, there's like, the seed to soil, soil to fertilizer, all that text. But then what we're really interested in are the integers, right? So I thought that it might be good to have those as arrays. So then each map is like seed to soil. I was calling a map.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think I called each of these like within one map. Each of these I think makes sense to call a range. I think I was calling them maybe
Okay.
a range definition.
I'm kind
So
of
then in this
interested to
case,
see. So, okay. So when I look at these numbers right now, it's just kind of gibberish. Like I don't know
oh,
what these
okay,
numbers mean or where they came from or anything like that. But maybe all we have to do is scroll up. It looks like maybe if we scroll up, there's some
yeah, I
stuff.
just kind of copy pasted the sample input in.
Yeah. So, okay. Right now, are you in like a clean working state as far as Git
Uh,
goes?
Hold on, I just deleted something and I want to keep it. And I believe I am. Let's double check.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I have a small suggestion with the Almanac spec. Um, so this is a common mistake. If you want to call it a mistake, but like right now you have your like setup data at the top, and then of course in like the second half of the file you have your various assertions. And as I commented on a second ago, it's a little bit difficult to connect the content of the assertions to the data that it corresponds to. Um,
Yeah.
and so there's a way that we can address that issue. We can, instead of using one large chunk of data, which all the tests use, we can create small chunks of data and create like custom data, not custom, create individual pieces of data for each test. The data might happen to be identical, but by putting the data inside the test or close to the test, we can more easily connect what's in the test with the data that the test is acting on.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, so can you scroll down to that first test for me?
Hmm.
Um, expect almanac that's blah blah blah. Okay. So one thing we can maybe do, I'm not sure if this'll I'm not sure if we'll like this, but we can try it. Um, if you scroll up to the top and copy like that first chunk, yeah. Yeah, and then we could paste that inside the
Excuse me.
Yeah, and then it's kind of clear why we're expecting 79, 14, 55, 13.
Okay. Okay.
And so why don't we run that and just make sure it actually runs? Okay, and why did these fail? Okay. And I wonder if that failed because of what we just did or if it failed for some other reason. So maybe we can revert that change we just made and run the test again and see if it passes or fails.
Okay.
Okay, so apparently it was because of our change we made just now. All right, so how about let's bring the change back. The first thing that comes to mind for me is just maybe a naming conflict. What if we rename sample input
Okay.
to something else?
I'll just call it seed input.
Okay.
Ah, there we go.
Okay, can you change it back to sample input and verify that it fails? Because I'm a little bit surprised that it would fail because of that.
I was just going to ask you why you think that is happening.
Yeah. Okay.
Huh.
I'm guessing it's because this test interferes with the other tests, like it overwrites the value of sample input.
Oh,
Yeah. How many test cases do you have in this file?
I think like 6 or 7, something like that. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay. How about this? How about let's set a goal, set an objective of not having that global data and having each test set up its own data. And if we
Okay.
set that as our ending objective, then we don't have to worry about naming conflicts. So, how about let's just test this test on its own? And as long as it passes by itself, then we can be okay with it.
I'm not sure I
Mm.
follow 100%. So do we need to so we won't rename this variable to like seed input or something or
Well, it seems kind of lame to have to like come up with some arbitrarily unique
right.
name just for the sake of it being unique. And a different
Mhm.
way we can solve that is just have each test have its own data rather than having a single global chunk of data.
Oh, okay. Okay, I think okay.
Yeah. So like, if that's good anyway, like it serves two of our purposes. So how about let's run Almanac spec, but just on line 40 or whatever. And then we can see if that test passes by itself.
Oh, I don't think I'm not sure how to do that. Just run line 40? Maybe do
Yeah,
you just
so
highlight it?
so if you go to the terminal and hit up to bring back your command, you can append to the end a colon 40. Sorry, no space actually.
Oh,
Yeah, and then run that. Yeah,
oh,
and that will like take whatever line you're on and run the test that um that surrounds that line. So you could have done like 43 or 45, anything that falls inside of that one test.
cool.
Yeah, so I find that really handy because like I don't always want to run like the entire test file. Sometimes I just want to zero in on one test, especially for tests that are like time consuming.
Makes sense.
Okay, so how about we do the same thing with that next test and grab only the data that it needs?
That might be hmm, we might run into trouble because the way I've set up the the method in the class is to, I think, parse out the seeds part, if that makes sense.
Okay, so it depends on having the seeds part in it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, can you scroll up and I'm curious just where the interesting data falls. Where does it start? Where's the data that's relevant to that test start?
Basically, so I think I'd have to take a peek at the method. Maybe we could do that next. But So this is the seeds, so that's what we got in the previous test. And then basically what the next test is all of this data or all of this input. It
Mhm.
basically takes just the integers and then makes some nested arrays from them. One array for each map and then an array for each range definition within each map.
Okay. Okay. So this is this is a microscopic tragedy, but maybe we can just undo what we did and forget about that improvement for now, and then come back since it doesn't look like we're going to be able to achieve our high level objective of having each test have its own individual data. It
Okay.
seems like first, well,
Yeah,
it seems like
it's
first
it's
we might want to modify the code so it's like more loosely coupled from the structure of the file.
yeah, I'm having a hard time thinking about it because I guess part of the challenge is to kind of parse this text file in such a way that it's like useful for your end result.
Mm-hmm.
So, hmm, yeah, I don't know. I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around how you would have like how you would even build it so that the data would be separate for each test.
And maybe it's
Maybe.
just not
I
possible.
don't know. Okay.
And also maybe I'm just thinking about everything totally wrong. But in any case, how about let's bail on
Okay.
this little project I sent us on, and we can take a different
just
approach.
kind just kind of undo it.
Sure.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and then maybe we can save and do a git status to make sure we didn't inadvertently change anything. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So I want to understand these tests a little better. So get seeds from input. Okay. So it's like it's parsing the seed data. Even though it's a subtle change, maybe
Mhm.
instead of get seeds from input, it could say it parses the seed data from the input, I guess.
Okay. I like that. I would
I think
probably
I think
maybe we'll stick to one set.
the significant change being changing get to parse is just a little bit more specific. Okay, it maps from input.
Probably I would say the same thing, parses, because it's doing the same thing from the input. It's just we would parse out the maps part instead of and ignore the seeds part.
Okay. Okay, convert seed to soil. What is that doing?
So that was kind of my first try at just looking at the soil map and converting the input seeds to the soil seeds. And the text kind of tells you what they tell you what the conversions should be at like each step. So they tell you like, oh, it should be these integers on the first step, these integers on the next map conversion, and so on and so on.
Okay. Okay. Um, well, I'm not necessarily suggesting we make any change now, but it might be good at some point for us to make a separation between the parsing of the data and the conversions. Because right now, as it is, when I look at this test file, I see, okay, it parses the seed data, it parses the map data, converts seed to soil. It's like, to me, it's a bit of a jarring change because we're doing one kind of thing and then we're doing a very different kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think it would be easier to understand if we group like with like.
Okay. You would maybe put it in a different like file.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure what I would do. Um,
Okay.
Separating the what from the how, I think what I would do is make it separate somehow, but how I would
Mm,
accomplish that, I'm not sure.
okay.
Yeah. Um, okay, convert seed to soil, convert seed to location. Can you show me the lower tests? Return minimum location, return number of seeds, treating seed input as ranges. Okay. Okay, so the first two are like parsing logic, and then the rest of it is what you might call the business logic, the actual conversions and such.
Yeah, so these three, so this is like a my kind of first try. So it does just the first map conversion.
Mm-hmm.
And then this one takes us all the way to the end of the conversions. So it does like all 7 map conversions.
Okay.
And then this one just gets us the lowest location from the final conversion. And that solves kind of the first half of the Advent of Code challenge.
Okay.
And then in the second half, they reveal kind of a new um, twist to the challenge. And then this was kind of a first thing that you need to do.
Okay. Okay. Well, we made those like small improvements to the descriptions of those first two tests. I don't feel ready for us to try to make improvements to those other tests yet. So maybe we can commit those couple changes we made just so we can wrap up that unit of work, and we can stop thinking about that and free our minds for whatever we choose to turn our minds to next. Okay. An excellent job reviewing your changes before committing.
Thank you. I didn't do the best job while I was coding at
Hmm.
doing it. I need to improve on kind of what did you call it, like atomic, or doing it like one little piece at a time?
Yeah, atomic commits. Yeah.
Um, ooh, what should I'm stuck on kind of the terminology. Would you say update or
I mean, I'd just say improve test descriptions or something like that.
okay, okay.
Okay, great. Yeah. Um, okay, maybe now let's take a look at Almanac. Like, I definitely think there's room for improvement in the tests in Almanac spec,
Yeah,
but I don't think I understand enough about the big picture yet in order to have any good ideas about how those can be improved. Okay, so maybe we could just give me a high level tour of the Almanac class for starters. So I see initialize, get seeds, generate seeds from ranges. What other methods do we have?
yeah. So get seeds, generate seeds from ranges. This is generate seeds from ranges is the second half of the challenge, so we can kind of ignore that. So
Okay.
get maps, that's the second test. Seed to soil, so this is the first kind of conversion. I believe that's the third test. And then seed to loc is corresponds to the fourth test. And
Okay.
then the minimum loc is the fifth test. So just finding the minimum location from the final conversion. And then that's it. And then at the end, I just tested it against the actual like puzzle input and made sure that I got the same solution for the first half.
Okay. Um, Maybe the first thing we could try to tackle is to decouple the parsing of the inputs from the business logic.
Okay.
So there's an almanac and there's okay. Hmm. We're gonna get a little bit philosophical.
I like it.
What is an almanac? Um, because okay, can you take us to sample input.txt? Okay, is this an almanac or is it something else?
Hmm. You know, I think that this is not the almanac
Mm-hmm.
because it includes the seeds. I think the almanac would probably be just the seed to soil map and
Oh,
onwards.
interesting. Okay. Um, Continuing with the philosophical examination, we have the seed to soil map, soil to fertilizer map, blah, blah, blah. We have several maps, and let's focus on the seed to soil map on lines
Mhm.
3 to 5. Lines 3 to 5 in this text file, is that a map or is it something else?
The way that I've been thinking about it is the actual map is probably lines 4 and 5, and then line 3 is just like a descriptor of which map it is.
Okay. Um, I'm there's something else that I'm trying to get at. Um, hmm. Okay. Let's see. Um, I'm trying to come up with some kind of metaphor, and the first one that comes to mind, I'm having trouble asking, but I'll just try anyway. Like, what is Josh Cuts? Like, who are you? Like, are you your physical body? Are you like, um, do you kind of see what I'm getting at?
Right. Am I the things that I enjoy or the way that I talk or
Yeah. Um, and for this, like, are we looking at an almanac or are we looking at a specification of an almanac? And if this is not an almanac, but rather it's a specification of an almanac, then what is an almanac?
I kind of see where you're going, I guess. I guess I mean yeah, I don't know. It's kind of tough. I mean it's a version of an almanac. I guess in general an almanac just kind of would contain information, but this is our specific almanac, right?
Yeah. Um, I want to emphasize that there's no single right or wrong answer to questions like these, but there are good and bad answers. And there are like useful and less useful ways of slicing these things up. Um, it's kind of like there's no such thing as a correct or incorrect song, but like there's definitely good and bad music and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, and so part of the art of programming is like thinking of thinking of ways of slicing up reality that are useful and easy to understand and all that. So let's break it down a little more because like an almanac is kind of a big thing. A map is a bit smaller. So let's talk about what a map is. Um, and I definitely think I would agree with you. Like line 3 there is just kind of a label, and 4 and 5 is the actual content of the map. Um, but then what do we do? What do we do with a map?
A map. The first language I'm coming up with is it will convert the seed to soil. So this particular map will convert a seed to soil. So it kind of maps seed to a particular soil.
Okay. Um, Let me remind myself of the details. So the number 50 on line 4 is what again?
I think it's the I want to bring it up, so I always mix them up in my head. Destination range start.
Yeah,
So
destination range
destination range
start.
start, source range start, range length.
Yeah, and I think if I remember correctly, we referred to one of those lines, one of those collections of those three numbers as a range definition.
Hmm.
Okay. So if we chose to, we could say that a map is a collection of range definitions and leave it at that.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Um okay, and what do we want out of a range definition or what do we want out of a map?
Um, Basically, we're just using it to kind of convert our seeds all the way through these various conversions to locations at the very end.
Okay.
Does that make
Yeah, because
sense?
it
Should
was
I?
something to do with like we wanted to know the smallest distance we could travel or something like that.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Yeah. And so I'm forgetting, but like is there some kind of physical space that's they're not really referring to it explicitly, but is there some kind of physical space that exists in this world that they're describing?
Seemingly, yeah. They're kind of on an adventure, and I think
Like are we in a garden or something like that?
we're on an island. I think we take a
Oh,
boat
okay.
and find a gardener.
Oh, it does say managing a giant garden. Um,
Oh, maybe that makes more sense. Yeah.
okay. Okay, so we
Hmm.
can make a mental note of that. We're in a garden on an island. And then I'm realizing as we talk about this that I have a very shaky grasp on the overall problem. Can you take us down further
Sure.
where it shows those specific examples?
This one,
Um, I think
or
so, but
maybe
then
at
uh-huh.
the very end, it kind of goes through all the conversions, which I think is a
Yeah.
helpful.
Okay. Mhm.
This is kind of the first one, right? So it tells us, okay, when you have a seed 79, it'll turn into soil 81, and so on. And then down
Mm.
here, it tells us all of them. So seed, just taking the first one, seed 79 goes to soil 81, goes to fertilizer 81, goes to water 81, goes to light 74, goes to temperature 78, humidity 78, and finally location 82.
Okay. It says the gardener and his team want to get started as soon as possible, so they'd like to know the closest location that needs the closest location that needs a seed. Okay.
Mm,
And so it's like, speaking about the closest location obviously implies that we have a current location. We're located somewhere, and that place we're located has a relationship to the closest location that has a seed or that needs a seed.
mhm.
Um, I'm just I'm just thinking. out loud. Hmm. Okay. So let's think about the highest level API of this program. Like the almanac is maybe not the main thing we want to concern ourselves with.
Right.
The garden seems like a prominent concept in this picture.
Right.
And so do locations, because ultimately a location is what we're interested in, right?
Right. Right.
And I can imagine something like um, garden dot locations dot needing seed dot closest or something like that.
Ooh. Yeah. I see kind of I see where you're going. Yeah.
Maybe we could make a note of that somewhere. I'm not necessarily saying that's the right idea or we ultimately want to go with that or anything like that, but it might be useful to at least jot that down and we can use that to think about the whole picture and the solution and all that stuff.
Where where would you make a note like that? I don't know. Kind of
I
the
think
best
just
spot. Just like a comment or
a separate
like
file of
like a
notes.
separate file.
Yeah.
Maybe like
Yeah, just like notes.txt or something like
okay.
that.
So maybe the garden is the something like the garden dot uh something like needs seed in something like that.
Yeah. So I think a lot of programmers, I don't know if this originates within each individual or if they get or if their minds get poisoned somewhere along the way, but there's kind of a tradition of abbreviating things, but it just the only thing it does, it saves a negligible amount of typing, um, and then it makes the code harder to understand. So I'd say instead of lokes, why not just type out locations? Okay. Um, yeah, and just grammatically, I feel like garden.locations.needing seed would be more fitting than need seed. And then instead of min, we could say closest. Yeah. And then one last minor note on that. Garden would be an instance rather than a class. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like it's like garden.locations.needingseed.closest kind of raises the question closest to what? And so maybe the method
Hmm.
should be closest to, and we should pass it current location. Yeah. And so if we think of our program like a pyramid, this could be the tip of the pyramid. And maybe we could
Okay.
implement this bit by bit. Um, we could have a test that starts with a garden and then a test that starts with a garden and a location and asserts that when we do garden.locations, it includes that location. Starts the garden and location. Oh, and asserts
Oh, search.
um, that garden.locations includes our location. But that raises the question, what exactly is a garden and what exactly is a location?
Right.
I don't know yet.
Think. Hmm. This is very interesting. Yeah, I'm kind of
Garden to me seems like a fairly unconstrained idea. Like they don't nobody's telling us what a garden is or isn't really, so that can be kind of up to us. But a location seems to me maybe a bit more constrained.
right.
So maybe we can start with location. Like, how is a location defined? We have those maps, and we derive locations from maps and range definitions and such. But what is a location?
It seems to just be an integer that is some distance away from, I mean, some distance that's from some starting point, but they don't really tell us the starting. Maybe, maybe they have some kind of known starting point that they're assuming, like some place at the beginning of the garden or something like that.
I mean, maybe it's just kind of if you have a location that's 5 feet away and one that's 20 feet away, you don't need to know exactly where
I
you
guess it doesn't
are.
matter. Yeah.
It's not an absolute location, it's just a relative location.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I'm kind of thinking now of the almanac as like something separate that we'll have to reference from, like maybe we'll have like a garden class, and I'm almost thinking that the almanac should be like a module or something that we go and grab that information from. It's like
Well, the
something we would
almanac,
reference.
yeah, the almanac certainly seems like a separate entity. Like if you imagine yourself standing in the garden, you'd be like holding the almanac.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was just thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would agree with you on that. Um, and the answer to what is a location, it seems like for our purposes, a location is an entity with a single property, which is distance from origin. Yeah. Yeah, and so it's like if we initialize a garden, hmm, okay. Imagine, Josh, a bare plot of land, um, and somebody gives you an almanac and they say, configure the garden in accordance with this almanac. And then you'd like plant seeds and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, it kind of seems like the almanac is like a blueprint for the garden.
Definitely.
Yeah. And a garden is not the same thing as land.
No.
Um, like a garden is a man-made construct on the land.
Yeah. Because it has all
Yeah.
these things. It has like the soil, the fertilizer, light, water.
Yeah. Yeah. So we take the land and then using the almanac, we turn the land into a garden.
I definitely think the land is kind of a piece of the garden, but not the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, we have to use the almanac to kind of make it into the garden. Yeah, it's like the specification, the blueprint. I like that.
yeah. And to be precise, I think maybe it's not us who, because like in this scenario of this problem, it seems like it's implied that like uh the garden already exists and it already has some stuff in it, but um we need to figure some things out so that the next actions can be taken on the garden.
Hmm.
So before I said we use the almanac to turn the land into a garden. I don't think I was right when I said that. It's more like using an almanac, the land was turned into a garden.
And we'll kind of take the next step with these particular
Exactly.
seeds.
Exactly. Um, yeah. Yeah, and I want to steer you away from thinking about actions. Okay, it gets a little nuanced. Um, like I want us to think about answering questions because in a sense, the garden is just a collection of, well, the garden is just a piece of reality. And we're just taking this piece of reality and we're asking questions about it. You know, in this garden, what is the closest location? And so that's not an action, that's just a question and an answer.
Mm.
And so um, I want to invite you to think about structuring the code in a declarative way that speaks in terms of finding answers rather than performing conversions and stuff like that.
Okay.
And we
Okay.
can we can talk more about exactly what that means. Okay, how are we doing? Oh, we got like 5 minutes left. Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. By the way, Josh, a lot of my conversations with my consulting clients are just like this. Like we might have a full session where all we do is talk about ideas and we never write a single line of code.
It's very
Um,
interesting. Yeah,
mhm.
I'm really enjoying it because it's much different than what I expected.
Yeah, yeah, that's what my clients say too. Because like good code is downstream of clear thinking.
Mhm.
And so we have to get these ideas straight in our heads before we can coherently solve the problem with code.
That makes sense.
Hmm. Well, maybe we can, we're not going to write a meaningful amount of code in the next few minutes, but maybe we can try to leave you with some things that can point you in a good direction. So we asked
Okay.
ourselves, what is a garden? And we said, a garden is what happens when we like using an almanac, we turn, I don't want to say we, using an almanac, land is turned into a garden. Yeah. And I think the land probably doesn't need to be a piece of our domain concepts. Um,
Mhm.
it's relevant in answering the question, what is a garden and what is an almanac and stuff like that. But I think by the time we get into our interesting business, the land is no longer part of the picture anymore. Okay, and then a location. Yeah, actually, maybe we should move line 6 below line 8.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of going like coarsest grain to finest grain.
Hmm.
Okay, and if you take us back to sample input, what are some of these other concepts?
I guess the maps and the maps are composed of multiple range definitions.
Yeah, we have this like convoluted chain of information, and we have to follow it in order to get the information we're interested in.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to do with that. Hmm. Okay, and these numbers are like locations and ranges. Is that right?
Right, right. So this is kind of this is what the seed I always forget. It's the source range start. So we have the destination range start, source range start, and then range length.
Okay. And this is a total linear garden. Like it's not a grid, it's just linear.
I guess, yeah, that's yeah, because everything there's only one uh dimension we're ever given, just a single integer.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe that's even worth writing down.
Maybe here. Um, like garden is a single dimension or something like that.
Yeah, you
Or
could say that. You could say the garden is linear, however you want to, whatever makes it clear to you. Okay. Strange choice for a garden shape, but okay.
yeah. Maybe it, yeah.
Maybe it's like a really long, narrow island. It's the only kind of garden you can get.
Maybe.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Can you take us back to the sample input? So we infer the characteristics of the locations from the maps.
I like it. We infer the locations
Oh, we infer the
from
characteristics of the
okay.
locations from the maps. So I guess maybe a location
Mm,
has more to it than just a distance from the origin. It's does it oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Does it have a seed? Does it have fertilizer? Does it have water? I'm not sure I'm right about all that stuff, but at least does it have a seed? Like that's a characteristic of a location, right?
every, I guess so. Yeah. Every location has all those things. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe we could edit our notes to say that because right now I think our notes are actually incorrect in that regard. Yeah, so instead of saying location is an entity that has a single property, distance from origin, we could say it has the following properties.
Yeah.
Yeah, distance from origin, has seed, blah, blah, blah.
Water and light, something like that.
I think it would benefit us to be even more precise because it's not that it has a seed property, it's that it has a has seed property that's either true or false, right?
I might be a little lost. What do you mean?
Well, what information do we have about the location's seed? I think all the information we have is whether the seed is there or not, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So I wouldn't call that the location's seed. I would call that the location's uh I mean seed presence. I don't know if I like that way of putting it.
oh,
But we could say like the has seed attribute or whatever.
I see. Hmm.
And then I don't know what soil is because it would be weird if there's no soil, but maybe they mean like something more specific like topsoil or something.
Some kind of, yeah, maybe like every seed, or for a particular location, there's like a particular soil that you need
Okay.
to use, something like that.
I don't know, but I think maybe a next step is you could read the problem and see
Yeah,
like what each of these properties is, and then um and then maybe you could either start over, which there's no shame in doing, or you could modify your existing code to kind of reconcile the code with this new way of modeling these things that we've come up with.
I feel like it's so much of a shift in my mind. I might start fresh.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Yeah, well, this has been a fun one. And as always, you can grab another session using that link. Um, let's see. Yeah, my obligatory blurb. I mentioned my consulting earlier. Dear viewer, this is the kind of stuff I do for consulting. I like to think that what I do is I I I sell clear thinking. You hire me to help you think more clearly. It's a vague offer, but really that's what I think it is. But it's like domain modeling and stuff like that. But the main thing that I tell people I do is TDD coaching. I help people with testing. But in order to do testing, you have to get these other things straight, so that you have a clear idea in your head of what you're going to test. Anyway, if you go to codewithjason.com, you can find more information on my consulting. Thanks, Josh, for joining me, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you very much.